1997, a year of change and forward momentum leading toward a promising future. Technology was grinding ahead with its wheels leaving ruts on the hearts of everyone it touched. Hollywood's budget was getting bigger, and the games industry was not that far behind. With the advent of the Sony PlayStation, the field of gaming was changed forever. Due to its reliance on CDs, as opposed to cartridges, consoles could finally compete financially with PC gaming to deliver 3D experiences, that which had not been seen before. It was in this year I started high school, and my priorities changed from being a carefree kid that loved to play outside, to one that worried about what other people said or thought. But then, I received a Sony PlayStation, and my mind was completely blown by its capabilities, both technically and its ability to draw me into a myriad of worlds all contained within optical discs. The topic of today's review is the first game that I ever experienced on the console, Vandal Hearts. Vandal Hearts is the tactical role-playing game by Konami that was first released on the Sony PlayStation in Japan in 1996 and the West in 1997, though it did later receive a Sega Saturn and a PC port. This game was my first foray into the realm of turn-based tactical RPGs, and what a ride it was. Not only did I not have a memory card at that time, because previously the SNES didn't need one, but also I didn't know what I was doing. I remember spending countless hours playing the game over and over trying to perfect my strategies. The game left quite an impression on 12-year-old me, so I'm glad to give it some coverage today. For the purposes of this review, I played Vandal Hearts on the Sony PlayStation. Vandal Hearts cuts straight to the chase, granting a huge expositional information dump in the form of a cutscene that states the current political landscape of Sostegaria, the continent that we'll be spending our time exploring, before dumping us straight into the action. We play as Ash Lambert, the son of a war traitor and the leader of the 3rd unit of the Ishtarian security forces, a kind of police unit responsible for protecting the citizens of the Republic of Ishtaria. We join Ash and his friends, Clint and Diego, as they are conducting a routine patrol on the outskirts of the city of Shumeria. Bandits appear, attempting to lift the goods that our party are carrying, only to be strong-armed out of their lives by the prowess of Ash and his companions. After identifying the leader of the bandit group, it comes to light that the man had previously been in prison and was recently released by someone in a position of power within the government, highlighting the political nature of the narrative. Yes, there is going to be a lot of this. Returning to the capital, the ISF witnesses the slaughter of innocents in the form of a set piece that brings out the dubious nature of the democracy established in the wake of the dethroning of the previous ruling dynasty, headlighting the amount of autocracy that the new government grants to its upholders of the law. After this, Ash is sent away from the city on a mission to find a missing general, whom it is said is conspiring a coup d'etat against the government. However, as the narrative progresses, you'll learn that this too is a lie, conspired by the government to change the pieces in power and cast down those that could potentially stop the power struggle. What I really liked about the narrative was that it always kept you guessing about what was going to happen next, and the characters that you find within your party you bond with because you can feel the hopelessness that they feel at being puppets to a much larger scheme. Vandal Hearts at its core is a very dark game which you would immediately discover upon seeing the gratuitous shower of blood that fountains out from a person whenever they are killed. Tonally, the game matches the atrociousness of this act of violence in not only the way the narrative is told, but also in the colour palette used for the game. I really enjoyed how everything came together to set a mood, and hermetically engendered the world in a way that made it believable and one that I wanted to save. While some may argue that the cast of characters are bland or tropey, I found that their conversations with each other gave them life and broke them away from the cast molds that they could be ascribed to. For example, Eleni presents, at first, as a helpless damsel that needs someone to protect her, but when she gains some of her later abilities, and you can see how much damage she can cause on the battlefield, you'll soon change that opinion. The game is split into chapters that begin with a cutscene that highlights the overarching narrative and the positions of those who are vying for power. I enjoyed that this showed how the actions of my party were affecting the world, and how the world was reacting to them. Each chapter contains battle maps as well as segments of narrative that allow you to better understand the characters and their motives. I was always happy to see the way the story progressed, finding out more about my party of travel companions, and how they related to each other, and the larger world of Sostegaria. Though you don't have any control over how the narrative is told, this wasn't a problem for me. Battles take place on an isometric map full of topography that can be used to your advantage, but also hinder you if the enemy has the upper hand. The camera can be spun to view the map from 4 different angles, as well as zoomed in or out, giving you a greater control of what you can see. At the beginning of a fight, you are shown the victory and loss conditions, and are then thrust into the heat of battle. You are not able to choose where your characters begin their turn at the start of battle, much like in Ark the Lad, which was kind of a shame, but it's nothing that breaks the game, as usually the maps are big and don't allow the enemy to get an unfair pot shot on you on the first turn. Additionally, the enemy will not be able to take their turn until you physically decide to pass the turn over to them by manually choosing that option. Being able to move all your characters in one turn, instead of enemy and character turns being determined by their speed, was something that I really appreciated. Within battle, there is always the defeat objective that if Ash dies, it's game over. However, what I particularly liked about Vandal Hearts was that each different map had unique victory or defeat conditions. Sometimes there would be another character that you would be forbidden from having die, or the game would be even more creative in that you had to move forward every turn to keep from being blown up on a collapsing bridge, for example, or decoupled from a linked train. My favourite unique battle was an earlier one where you first set foot on Gilbaris Island, the place where it is said that Magnus Dunbar went to plan his coup d'etat. When you first arrive in the village on the island, you find that there is something not quite right with its inhabitants, as they all seem to be screaming for the blood of Ash and his companions. In order to complete the battle, you need to destroy all of the statues around the field without killing the villagers that will inevitably attack you. The thing is, if one attacks you, your character will automatically retaliate, which is almost guaranteed to take the villager's life. The trick is to manipulate the environment to encourage the villagers to move a certain way when it is their turn, keeping them away from your party. Speaking of the environment in battle, some objects can be manipulated, such as kicking a boulder, which will damage all enemies in a line and really impress Chris Redfield, moving a box, which can block off a route or allow you to access higher ledges, activating switches that will change the environment in some way, as well as examining odd areas of land which can sometimes grant you unique treasures. If you want to master the game, you'll need to become good at identifying which parts of land look suspicious in order to find treasure, as some of these are unique quest items that are collectively required to allow Ash to transform to his final class. Regarding classes, each character is innately relegated to a role, such as Diego being an archer or Huxley being a priest. However, at levels 10 and 20 respectively, if you visit a dojo in any of the towns on the world map, you'll be able to upgrade your character's class. When you do this the first time, you are given the option of 2 classes to upgrade to. Choose wisely, as this cannot be undone. For example, a priest like Huxley can upgrade to a bishop with access to better healing magic, or a monk, which gives him a much higher movement range, as well as access to a different set of magic. The trick is to ensure that you are pre-planning what you are going to change each character into, so that you have a well-balanced party able to deal with anything that is thrown their way. Much like Fire Emblem, Vandal Hearts acts on a strength versus weakness system where each class type will do better against different enemy units. For example, mage spells will absolutely devastate heavy type characters, whereas archers will shred the wings of enemies with the ability to fly. Soldiers can take the life of an archer or mage easily, and heavy units are best at outdoing soldiers in pure strength. When choosing where to place your units on the field of battle when it's your turn, you need to consider what enemies will have access to their position, and whether they could survive an attack. If a character loses all their HP, they will withdraw for the remainder of the battle, losing out on any experience that they could have gained, and giving you a penalty to the amount of gold you receive at the battle's conclusion. Characters gain experience from killing enemies, and will level up at each 100-point threshold. One thing that I didn't like about the game, which is only a minor grievance, is that when you target an enemy you do not know how much damage you are going to do, or how much they are going to do to you, so it makes it difficult to gauge whether you should attack an enemy based on how much health they have remaining. This is important as any enemy that survives an attack will retaliate if they are within attacking range. Oh, and enemies can block your attacks if you attack them from the side or the front, so it's best to always attack from the rear if possible. Outside of battle and the narrative railroad, you are sometimes given the opportunity to visit towns and cities. Here you can go to the store to upgrade your equipment, go to the dojo to promote characters that have fulfilled the level requirements, as well as visit the local tavern for regional and political information. This little splash of insight into how the public is feeling about current events was a nice way at painting the bigger picture of how changes to the political landscape affect the citizens. You can also sometimes get hints as to where to look for unique items from some locals, which will allow you to gain special keys, one per chapter, that when equipped to Ash before visiting the dojo, will give the party the opportunity to take on a bonus map that grants an object needed to upgrade Ash to his hidden class. I didn't bother doing it this playthrough, as his final class is way overpowered and can only be accessed for the final couple of battles anyway. The Vandalia class gives you access to every spell and item in the game in an unlimited capacity, including a spell that hits every single opponent on the map for massive damage, which I feel cheapens the last couple of battles. I'm glad that this time I chose to complete those battles on the merit of my party. As mentioned before, the design of the game is tonally dark, which matches the nature of the narrative, and I really liked this. Reds and greys stand out predominantly amongst the locations that you travel to, representing iron and blood, a thirst for war. The cutscenes that stop end each chapter are done as 3D pre-rendered footage with hand-drawn characters overlaid, which I felt was clever and mirrored the fact that the party were 2D sprites atop an isometric 3D field. I also enjoyed that the characters had portraits when speaking that changed based on their inflection of emotion. The enemy designs were interesting and sometimes formidable looking, with the gratuitous fountains of blood acting like the icing on the cake of the entire aesthetic package. Musically, the game uses a lot of brass, drums, and strong wind instruments, which echoes the nature of war, but is juxtaposed with Ash's ocarina that laments the times past when the world was more stable. The music is always appropriate to the scenes that they play to, but I didn't find any that really stuck out that I'd want to listen to when not playing the game, with one exception. The ending song, which contains elements of the opening song, really blew me away with its emotional depth. It reminds me of the ending of Suikoden, which isn't surprising considering that both games were produced by Konami around the same time. Vandal Hearts is a game that will always stay a gem in my heart. Even playing it now, all these years later, there is little to fault with the game. Sitting at around 15 hours, it is well worth the time spent in getting to know the characters and assisting them to liberate the lands of Sostegaria. Whilst there wasn't critical battle information like how much damage you deal to an enemy displayed before attacking them, the trade-off of not losing your character permanently if they died more than made up for this. If you like games that are tonally dark, then I recommend you play Vandal Hearts when you get a chance. By the way, when you got a Sony PlayStation, what was the first game that you played on it, and does it hold up today? Let me know in the comments. This has been Venoir with a review of Vandal Hearts for the Sony PlayStation. If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe for more great JRPG content. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all again next time. Take care, and bye bye for now.
Nada u budući miran san kad se